Hello, my name is Kevin Seaman. I'm an interdisciplinary artist and the artistic director of Diamond Wave, a queer arts organization offering dynamic artistic programs and community-based consulting. Today, I'm excited to share some information about the Artists Adaptability Circles, a collaborative seed funding and leadership development program intended to support those artists hardest hit by COVID by empowering them to work together towards the issues they see in their own communities. This program is a collaboration of Diamond Wave, emerging arts professionals, La Peña Cultural Center, MACLA, Movimiento de Arte y Cultura Latinoamericana, SOMART's Cultural Center, and our funding partners, San Francisco Foundation, Walter and Elise Haas Fund, and the Castellano Family Foundation, with additional support from Bisemi, Phyllis Iwadas, and Zellerbach Family Foundations. This program really came together because our core organizational partners have an established relationship of trust, and we were all willing to make time for this deep conversation before beginning implementation. The secret to the success of this program is really the regularity of our bi-weekly meetings and sustaining our relationships through a global pandemic. Although some of the folks have changed through this process, the meetings keep us grounded, together, and connected. The program, overall, is focused on mutual aid, more specifically, supporting artists to address their own issues rather than assuming what it is that they need. The conversation has always been led by artists, with funders guiding and supporting choices to best support our communities. This differs from traditional grant programs because we aren't just focused on economic impact or tangible outputs, we're holding space for financial, emotional, and community connectivity and growth. This has also created circles amongst the administrators and advisors of this program, allowing us professional and personal connections during highly isolated times. That has impacted our professional and creative practices in turn. Before we get too far into the ideology, I want to tell you about this program's long gestation period. We began meeting in June 2020 to discuss how we would address unmet needs during COVID. We first thought that offering culturally specific reopening workshops would best support those artists and organizations hardest hit by COVID, specifically Black, Indigenous, and people of color, LGBTQIA2S+ people, people with disabilities, and other historically under-resourced communities. But then we paused and began to envision a community forum to engage communities in discussing their own needs. As we did so, many other convenings began to emerge, and we instead learned from the data from those convenings rather than investing in one ourselves. Then, our program shifted towards mutual aid based on what was already happening in communities. Another inspiration was System Check Podcast Episode 4, Why Are People Poor? And the perspectives of Aisha Nyandoro about the Magnolia Mothers Project, which was the first guaranteed income project in the country to focus explicitly on racial and gender justice. This organization gives $1,000 monthly stipends to low-income Black women in Jackson, Mississippi with no strings attached. The program's foundation is the understanding that its beneficiaries know their needs more than funders, and the usual systems for addressing cash resources are stressful, dehumanizing, and time-consuming. Aligned around the ideas of artist autonomy and wanting to spark internal shift and connection more than external outcomes, we revised the program to solidify a calendar, process, and training the artists may need to succeed, simultaneously fundraising the almost $200,000 to support the program's financial needs. We conducted a closed nomination process for our beta round with the participating organizations, Emerging Arts Professionals, Diamond Wave, SOMARTS, MACLA, and La Peña, bringing in 22 applications from trusted artists already in our communities. We scored by consensus and ensured that everyone was on board with all decisions. Lead artists then had full agency to select their participating artists based on their own relationships and experiences with no additional application process. We also provided connection to our own communities to help fill out some of these circles when prompted by the lead artists. We hosted 2 all-circle training workshops early in the process, which included an overview of the work plan they need to submit for funding. This was augmented by monthly lead artist check-in meetings and open lines of communication and support between the artists and the program's leadership. Due to the condensed nature of the beta round, many artists needed longer to meet and discuss their priorities before submitting the work plans. This was due to ongoing pandemic health issues and artists needing to shift their plans for in-person events as well as other unforeseen obstacles. These revisions were overseen by the program's leadership, Diamond Wave and EAP, and then implemented with funding held by our host organizations, La Peña, MACLA, and SOMARTS. We are currently conducting evaluation, reviewing our bi-weekly advisor meeting notes, monthly recaps, and qualitative and quantitative data from partners as well as participants. Tracking attitudes and abilities through an EAP questionnaire, one-on-one interviews with lead artists, an all-circle meeting focused specifically on evaluation, as well as ongoing communication with lead artists so that we're able to track long-term impacts of the project. Now that we've talked about the process, I want to go back to the structure of the Artists Adaptability Circles. At the heart of this program are our 5 lead artists. These are the darker shade of brown in the illustration. In our beta round, we also had one circle that chose to work in a co-leadership model. These artists are all paid $4,000 to oversee the implementation of the work of their individual circles. Participating artists in each circle also receive a $1,500 stipend for their participation. And together, the circles meet on their own to discuss their issue and to plan and implement activities that support their issue. Each of these circles is supported with training and program guidance by Diamond Wave and EAP, with La Peña, MACLA, and SOMARTS working with lead artists to pay out $10,000 in flexible funding for each circle. The distributed leadership and funding model was supported graciously by our funders San Francisco Foundation, Walter and Elise Haas Fund, Castellano Family Foundation, Zellerbach Family Foundation, Phyllis C. Wattis Foundation, and Bisemi Foundation, all of whom worked alongside AAC leadership to get funding to one or more of the 5 organizations. Now that I've given you an overview of the Artists Adaptability Circles program, I'd love you to hear some other voices about this exceptional work.
Arts and culture are critical to the health and development of our Bay Area communities. When accessible and broadly supported, cultural arts can and has transformed perceptions and dynamics of cultural power, privilege associated with justice, equity, and accountability. At the San Francisco Foundation, we believe that a thriving Bay Area means a thriving arts and cultural sector that is economically secure, rooted in vibrant communities, and engaged always in civic life. I think what makes the Artists Adaptability Circle so special is that it is a community-created funding and technical assistance program designed to put Bay Area artists and arts workers back to work and creatively addressing issues arising in their lives and in their communities. By supporting our anchoring arts organizations and individual artists, we can preserve some of our endangered cultural practices and shift narratives on how we think about ourselves, our society, and our culture.
Hi everyone, Tara Dalbo. I'm the Deputy Executive Director at La Peña Cultural Center. I was lucky enough to be brought into this conversation very early on when it was a really small group of us, and the questions that were being asked were, how do we directly serve our communities? How do we support artists? What's the work that's being done that we can uplift and strengthen? And, issues, specifically equity issues during the pandemic of communities, BIPOC communities being impacted much more intensely and not having as much support, artists being impacted very intensely and no longer able to stay in the Bay Area. So there was a lot of dialogue, there was a lot of collaboration. There was this growing of the group and perspectives and voices, a combination of funders, arts org leaders, consultants, artists, all serving different communities and coming from a very different perspective. And ultimately, I think a really beautiful component of this work that definitely drove me much more deeply into it was the care and community and the authentic intentionality from all of our partners in this process from beginning to end. The pillars for me were absolutely opportunities to directly support the communities that we serve, a desire to support the work that's already being done, rather than staying within the model of offering funding and resources that are built within certain structural parameters and then need to be applied for as such. Saying instead to our communities, what are you doing? How are you impacting our ecosystem currently? And how can we support that work that's already on the ground? Also an opportunity to build out networks, because I think the way that funding, granting, even just shows and exhibitions and performances, it's all relationships and communications and networking, right? And it can be so easy to stay within certain circles rather than extend outward. So there was a really concerted conversation around who's not at the table, who should be at the table, how do we build out those networks, those relationships, those communications. And that was the piece of the participatory, of the leading artists, bringing in their participatory artists, bringing in folks who we might not know as an advisory team, but who they as artists know and have worked with and trust and want to, as artists, support in their own ecosystems and communities. I think as an institution for La Peña, we had really wanted to support more directly artists and communities in the form of offering tools and education when and if we can, and resources. And so this allowed us to more directly provide resources to community members, and again, to kind of stand in solidarity and support with our greater ecosystem. I'm gonna just check my little notes and make sure that I didn't miss a piece. I think the beating heart of it was really arts, social change, structural change. How do we do something differently, more collaboratively with these shared leadership models and these conversations that are very symbiotic? And how do we create better systems and support one another in a world that's unfortunately very dystopian sometimes? And I think there's a lot, quite a learning curve still here. And it's a work in progress, but it was a really beautiful journey, both personally and professionally for me. And I really enjoyed the opportunity to work with incredible peers, leaders in the field, and really wonderful humans. So that was it for me.
Thank you for that, Tara. And thank you also, Islama, for your thoughts. It's really important in this process that as Kevin was mentioning earlier, that we have so many different people and so many different viewpoints and so many different groups coming together and helping with this process. So hearing both of you and how you approached this and the intents that you each had really speaks to what has been built here. But it's really hard to speak to what's been built here without engaging and speaking to the actual artists involved. So if you all don't mind, I'd like to switch on over to speaking with the artists and getting their overviews. Just to give a little bit of framing, these will be some overviews in which we're going to be hearing from our lead artists about what their cohort's area of focus was and is still, and how their individual cohorts work together to achieve the goals that they set for themselves and for their cohorts. They'll also be speaking to us a little bit about what their process was going about the formation and engagement of their cohorts. And we're going to start this off with speaking with co-leads, Alma and Trisha, who decided to address the gaps in resources and representation for queer women and non-binary artists of color.
Thank you, Stefan. So Halito Sahojipoya, Trisha Rainwater Tutwiler. Hi, my name is Trisha Rainwater Tutwiler. I like to start by introducing myself in Choctaw, my family, lineage, and line, and honoring them for all they've done to get me where I am today. I am a multimedia artist, remembering to speak slowly, and self-portrait photographer here on unceded Ramaytush Ohlone land in San Francisco. I am super excited to lead this project with Alma, who I'm going to pass it off to so they can introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Alma Lepla, multiracial and Latine artist, working with Trisha in this project for what we've now referred to it as Queer Rain. Very, very excited to get to share more about the context of the work that we're doing there. Yeah, so maybe we could just jump into that by sharing a little bit about how it started and where it's going. Does that sound okay in terms of, I'm looking to the facilitators just in terms of scope and time.
Yes, that's perfect.
Awesome, thank you.
So I'll start off. So Alma contacted me at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, wanting community. And I am a self-professed closed off loner, and who mainly works alone on art. And when they reached out, it was really fortuitous. It really helped shape my practice. We started to host these monthly meetings where we would get together and hold space for folks who, queer women and non-binary artists of color, to come together and share what we were making, how we were creating.
Yeah, and I can just, as an artist who was working mostly in social practice and doing a lot of collaborative work, we were sort of on opposite ends of the spectrum when things were in the height of the pandemic. And I had reached out to Trisha, and I was sort of shook by something that Trisha had said when the two of us were just in sort of our own kind of casual conversation about, hey, there was this call for work. Did you see that? I think it's really perfect for you. You should apply. And these kinds of things, just sort of encouraging each other through this difficult time, that Trisha had said, hey, what if we were to open this up to a community of our people, and specifically naming, like, what if we were to hold space for queer women and non-binary artists of color? And I just thought, like, wow, what a bold and an exciting, like, do we get to do that was sort of my initial question. Like, do we get to have that? And before we had even known about the artist adaptability opportunities, we started just opening up our personal Zoom calls, and so having folks join us in that space in these really informal sort of ways. And through the support of this program, have really seen this grow in these exciting ways that I don't think, I'll just speak for myself, I didn't even know were possible, didn't even know could grow like this. So super excited.
Right, we've learned so much. We went into the project without a name, and we've come together with a name with our group members, Beto and Mo. We've created and held space for workshops, and we've changed a lot. We're shifting dramatically. We're going to be moving to a platform where we're going to create a resource, like a magazine, and we're going to have a launch party. The magazine the publication, I'll say, is going to feature queer women and non-binary artists of color, specifically in the Bay and more broadly, and really make space where there has not been. What I will say one more thing that we've learned through this: we wanted to have a large culminating event in an art space, and it's not so easy without a lot of money. And I think, as grateful as we are, we want more. We're hopeful that we can continue on this path.
Awesome. Thank you so much, both of you. We're going to move on over to Chris Evans.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Evans. I'm an artist based in Oakland on Chochenyo Ohlone land. I am a musician, dancer, body worker. I have a Pilates studio here in North Oakland. I have been part of a collective called the House Full of Black Women for a number of years now. And our work has focused on the health and well-being of girls and Black women in Oakland. This has been an interesting journey to this project. It started with the work with the House Full of Black Women, a project that's directed by Ellen Sebastian Chang and Amara Tabor Smith. But I think that it was the moment in COVID that for me opened up space to really think about what are obstacles to Black women's healing. I think prior to COVID, we were all in such a go, go, go mode and in so much doing that there wasn't really time to think about how things might be done differently and how we might really find a deeper level of healing. So as I was sort of sitting with things during COVID, this question for me came up is why am I not able to sustain my work with Black women through my practice? And one of the things that I realized is that there are many obstacles. And then I was like, well, what if I could just pay women to come? And then I thought about the idea of reparations. And this took me into the idea that we actually do owe a debt to Black women in the society, a long debt, a 400-year-old accumulated debt. And I see in my Black women friends and family and colleagues a lot of physical pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain as a result of the system and structures that we live in. I also see that these women continue to do work for others and to neglect their self-care for the better of our communities and all addressing all of the different problems that we are facing. So I started with this idea of how could I fund this? Who would fund this? And then I got an email from Rhiannon Evans McFadgen, one of my favorite arts administrators, artists, and collaborators, presenting this opportunity that was almost exactly the budget I was imagining. And it also provided a structure for me to rethink and to deepen how I was thinking about this idea of self-care reparations, to bring other women that I have worked with for many years together to think about these questions of what is self-care for Black women? How do we practice self-care in a very oppressive society that does not really value the care of Black women's bodies and spirits and minds and hearts? And so we have started in a very small group on this journey. We do see it as a journey, and we see it as important to work with a small group slowly and deeply, and to take our time with it. We have we meet weekly, and we kind of kicked off the whole project with the retreat that we did in Santa Fe, and that started a very big shift in thinking about how we might approach self-care. So just to sort of sum up, we are in the exploration, we're in the question, we're in the unknown. And what we're hoping is that we can find our ways to thriving lives, and that from that place we can begin to give back. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. And next up, we have Hector Lugo. Hector, there you are.
Hi, everybody. Hello. My name is Hector Lugo. As Stefan said, I'm a musician and educator. And I'm originally from Puerto Rico. I was born and raised there and came to the Bay Area. I've been here for about 30 years now, working both as a musician professionally, as a teacher, and also partnering with a lot of different organizations, and in particular with La Peña Cultural Center, who has been one of my main collaborators throughout the years. Our project basically has two dimensions, but both dimensions respond to a common need to bring Afro-Latin musical and cultural communities in the East Bay together again after more than a year and a half of hiatus. We all felt in our circle that we needed to create spaces, events, initiatives that connected us again to one another and that activated our communities. With this in mind, we planned, we created a common plan with two kind of dimensions, as I said, or initiatives. One is organizing a series of community jam sessions for practitioners of different traditions of Afro-Latin music and dance. We started with the idea of organizing jams with 5 different musical cultural groups: Afro-Cuban music practitioners, bomba practitioners, son jarocho practitioners, Afro-Venezuelan music practitioners, and also with the Haitian community, particularly students and groups that perform and present traditional Haitian music. Given the stubbornness of coronavirus, we had to pare down this idea of having all these different jam sessions, and we pared it down to 2. So we have organized and already conducted, already had one of our first jams. The first community that we connected with was the Son Jarocho community. Son Jarocho, I don't know if you know, it's a traditional genre of music and dance from the region of Veracruz, originally in Mexico, and it's rooted in the blending of Arabic, Spanish, African, and indigenous Mexican musical and cultural forms. And it is the culture of Son Jarocho is community and participation. There's a strong Son Jarocho community in the Bay Area, particularly in the East Bay. So we paired, we collaborated with Grupo Diapason, and we partnered with Hacienda Peralta and organized Fandango for Dia de los Muertos. This event took place this last Saturday. We had the participation of about 75 people. Again, we kind of pare it down. We had this idea that we were going to have a big coming out party after the pandemic. We had to kind of pare it down, but it was a beautiful event. We have some pictures and some videos about the event. It was a multi-generational event, and basically students, practitioners, all came together to perform. The second jam is going to take place in December at Richmond Art Center, and it's going to focus on bomba, an Afro-Puerto Rican tradition. That's going to take place December 12th. The second dimension of our program or our plan focuses on teaching. And we have organized and are conducting a 10-week residency at Manzanita Sid Elementary. Manzanita Sid is a Title I school, part of the Oakland School District, and is in the heart of the Fruitville District. It's a community, mainly working class community, a lot of immigrant kids. We are conducting 10 weeks of classes. We're seeing 18 groups of kids. We are seeing over 300 kids. We have 3 teachers teaching bomba, son jarocho, and Afro-Caribbean drumming. This project is going to culminate in December with a recital at the school where we're going to invite members of the son jarocho bomba community at large and parents and teachers to see what the kids are doing and connect the kids to the community at large of practitioners of these traditions. We have a lot of other plans, but right now, that's what we've done. That's where we're focusing our energies, and we really appreciate this opportunity to present and share with you what we're doing.
Thank you, Hector. And next, we're going to go to Tommy. Tommy, you there?
Okay, so yes, my name's Tommy Aguilar. I'm from San Jose, Muwekma people, Ohlone land here in San Jose. Just want to shout out to Makla. Has been a home and space for me to thrive in San Jose and has kept me as a creative and working artist in San Jose. My cohort goes under the moniker Universal Grammar, which is a brand I established well over 20 years ago when I was much more of a youngin'. And I created events, multimedia events with visual arts, film, and mainly music to bring the type of music I felt my city was not embracing and or not having spaces to provide it. Makla provided that space. So fast forward to 20 years now, coming out of a pandemic, my work hasn't changed. I've always looked to book and promote and perform music that is for much more younger emerging ears. And our city has not yet developed venues or spaces to support younger folks. So that's where our work is mainly come out of. I wrote my grant or my proposal to Diamond Wave with that aspect in mind. So when I was awarded this grant, I had to go and find a cohort. I didn't have any particular people in mind, but I did go and recruit what I thought were young creatives in San Jose that I saw and recognized doing amazing and emerging work that was important and needed to be heard. So I reached out my hands to them and brought them on board and shared with them the mission that is, hey, I know you guys are all struggling to find gigs, perform, get a foot in the door. So let's come together and create spaces for ourselves, you guys, and other young artists, creatives to perform in San Jose specifically. And so in doing that, we've had to learn, I think, each other's processes. I'm working with very much young and kind of not knowledgeable of what it is, it is to do to work with venues and or managers or agents when booking or creating spaces, the cost of things and whatnot. So I allowed to bring that expertise to the table to kind of like show them the way. So I guess that's put us in a space right now where we are struggling coming out of the pandemic, trying to find spaces for young folks of color. So it's still definitely an issue. The pandemic has definitely slowed, I think, our grand ambitions in the beginning to put together events this summer that didn't transpire for a lot of reasons. My cohort came together collectively with concerns about the COVID rising numbers of infection. So we decided to push off some dates. But I think we're a lot more comfortable now and understanding what we need to come to do. So we are currently in the space of finalizing details around an event, hopefully multiple events in December, as well as we've also pivoted to just giving resources to a one-off event or two events to actually provide scholarships for other young creatives. So we want to use the event as a platform to create awareness, hopefully create a new movement. What I've done is actually step out of the picture of curation and have handed it off to the 20-somethings in my cohort to take lead on that aspect of these events and what these grants will particularly say. So we're currently in that state of the process. So I'm pushing my cohort to get our T's crossed and our I's dotted so we can announce here something very soon. In my experience as a presenter and a promoter, I don't want to really announce anything until we have all of it together. So all I can say is that, like everything I've ever done, I'm super excited to make an announcement here shortly with the work that my cohort is currently putting in. So I do want to say that San Jose is a odd city. So I think I'm, as one of the only representatives here from San Jose, you have to understand that currently San Jose has one operating music venue, like legit live music venue. And I say that with sarcasm and whatever, because it's a joke. So I just want to share that little insight with you guys. If you're not familiar with my city and its hardships when it comes to spaces for young creatives to perform. So there we are.
Thank you, Tommy. And then last we have Zachary.
Hi, everybody. So I just want to say hello. My name is Zachary Forkum. I am a dance theater artist based in the Chichenyo Ohlone lands in Richmond, California, in the East Bay. I have had the pleasure of being the facilitator of a cohort, including Jocelyn Mathis-Reed, Ayano Nakagawa, Stephanie Hewitt, and Heather Stockton. At the outset of this, when Kevin graciously nominated me, I thought, okay, well, what? I work as an artist and in arts administration, and it's like we talk about recovery all the time. And when I thought about the dance community, I thought of folks who our primary means of connecting, which is dance and in person and with one another, was put on hold. And I thought, I've had such a history of healing myself. And so thought, okay, well, let's look at what transformative healing is. Now, of course, what's healing for some is not healing for others. And so the idea was not to step in with some preconceived notion, but to step in and see what folks wanted to do, what was up to them. And so as a cohort, we, well, before that, we looked at the base pay of what was being offered for artists, and it was doubled. That made our community pot for projects or for some kind of enrichment lower, but it seemed like if we were going to be spending the time, we needed to double that pay, and we did. And that money went to all of these artists are working in the community, showing up and doing really great work. So some of it is going towards things like on Valentine's Day, 2 of the artists are hosting a Queering in Dance Festival activity with Shaw Anderson. That is based on fat liberation. Stephanie Hewitt is adding a collaborator to her 2022 Counterpulse production with these funds. And while working and making sure other folks are working in the region, hiring additional collaborators, there are also very real needs of food scarcity, loss of wages that people were dealing with. A lot of our members were getting back to work. And these funds helped create a bridge where they didn't have money. And so as a group, when we met together and we started talking, we wanted to spend our time considering and working towards creating a container or platform for Bay Area-based queer, trans, and BIPOC movement artists to freely engage in their practice, creativity, and also to promote wellness through those activities. We invested this on a dream scale. And we created budgets and we thought, okay, well, what would this look like? And living in reality and having about $4,000 to work with, we are ending this process by going on a retreat together to put some of those ideas into practice and to see how we want to work together moving forward into 2022. Thank you.
So thank you all. Again, please feel free to take this moment as we sort of start talking to the artists in less presentation form to grab whatever you need and come back to us. So right now we want to transition into, again, like a little bit more of this conversational form. We've heard a little bit about what all of the artists have been doing with this project, recognizing that this is a fairly unusual grant program where we have cohorts of cohorts who were charged with doing whatever they felt was the right thing to be doing for their communities right now. So that's pretty open-ended. And I wanted to start with the question of what was the original response for some of these artists when you saw this call that was a little bit different and a little bit open-ended? Why did you decide to apply to this one? What was special or different about this program? And I'll start with Trisha and Alma.
Hey, so I just wanted to, sorry, there is a fire truck passing right now, but I just wanted to shout out SOMARTS and say that that is really why I applied. I had a long-standing relationship with Carolina and SOMARTS, and they really had, I like sometimes don't like the word championed, but that's how it felt. There was this long-lasting connection and interest in my body of work, support of my body of work, even when it was hard and clumsy. And when Carolina reached out to me, I felt so honored, and I just wanted to do a really good job. And bringing in Alma, where we already had this long-standing relationship and we were building trust, felt natural.
Alma, did you have a few additional words there?
Yeah, I'll just say it's an honor. I'm grateful for this opportunity, and yeah, I'm grateful that Trisha had wanted to continue the work that we had started outside of this space and wanted to utilize this opportunity to really nourish that. And of course to SOMARTS as well, just for being able to do any of this work. So yeah.
And I also encourage any of the other artists. We're going to be asking these questions to specific people, but also artists, please put your responses in the chat. Share with folks what your answers would be to these questions. So the next question, this is for Chris first. What were you able to do with this project? Again, thinking about the difference in this project versus other grants, what were you able to do differently with this that you wouldn't have been able to do with a more traditional grant form?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing was that we were just given the funds and kind of trusted to do the work that we were starting out to do. And this was not work that was going to culminate in a show or any particular product. It was a place where we were actually able to use the funding to start to create space to slow down, to rest, to begin to shift our relationship to our self-care. It enabled us to do a retreat in Santa Fe where 5 of us in the group, and I get really frazzled when I try to fit everything into 3 minutes. And I forgot to mention my amazing collaborators, Yvette Aldama, Toby, Melora Corial, Sheila Russell, and Keisha Turner. You can read about them on the site. They're all incredible artists, activists, healers, wearing many hats and doing lots and lots of good work in the community. But we all work very hard all the time, and we very rarely slow down. And being able to do this retreat, which was a coaching session facilitated with horses on this beautiful ranch in Santa Fe, where we really got exposed to a different way of being, kind of in this hanging out with the horses. The lessons of being in a healthy group, in a healthy herd. We were able to have direct experiences. The other piece of it was that we had a few days where we would do the training for a couple of hours, and We would then go back to a beautiful place in Santa Fe and eat and rest and talk. And the way that having that space and the rest to let conversations unfold, to let our thinking about self-care unfold, to let things emerge that were coming up in response to the training was invaluable, and it reinforced to me one of the questions that was one of the initiating questions of this project. What would Black women create if they were rested and healed and living thriving lives? And I started to see a glimpse of that in the retreat. I don't know any other funding that would have made this possible. And we are all transformed by it. We are all on a serious journey towards self-care, which I deeply believe is going to benefit our whole community as we go through this process. So I'm deeply, deeply grateful to the AAC committee for dreaming this, for realizing this. Deeply thankful to Tara for helping us administer the finances of the project, and Stefan and Kevin for helping support and administer the project, and of course Rhiannon for both support and tools and guidance. So yes, I am deeply grateful to all. Meant to get that into the first introduction, but here it is.
Thank you. I will say it's been really exciting to be able to see what you, knowing you for all of this time, to see what you were able to do with this freedom. And I think the conversations you and I have had over the years have been definitely influenced the form of this entire project around that, needing that freedom and needing that time has been a theme in our conversations for a while. Thank you so much. So Zachary, I think I'm going to start with you for this one, is thinking about, with this freedom, with this format, what impact, whether it's a change or not a change, but what impact has this project and this time had on you, your community, your practice?
You know, I was speaking with Kevin at one point along this process, and Kevin had asked a very similar question, and I redirected them and I said, you know, I feel like you're asking me if I've had a certain result, if I've had a result around like healing, of like it's beautiful and it's light and it's wonderful. But what this has felt like for me has been, you know, oftentimes when we describe depression, like recovering from depression or recovering from something traumatic, like putting on your clothes is a success in and of itself. Brushing your teeth is a success in and of itself. And it has taken a lot for our community to show up in certain ways. It's been tough and hard, and there's been strain. And but it is the strain that I think we talk about recovery. And I don't think that is always going to feel good or comfortable. And so this has been an impetus in recovery in the harder parts of what for me, and I can only speak for myself, I'm not speaking for my group. There have been moments where it's like, oh, this really feels like pulling like something really hard out, but we're going to do it and we're going to show up because now is the time to do it. We have to try. And to be able to support what people are already, I'm highly biased, but everybody in my group it just feels like they're rock stars doing excellent work. I know we're going to share them a little more later on, but I just want to, I think they're all revolutionary. And oftentimes in grants, we have to show up and we have to prove ourselves. And it was really impactful to say, I see you. I think you're great. I think we can work towards something together. And also, here's the money. Do whatever you. It's yours. You can tell me what you're going to do with it. It's all right if you don't. Everybody told me what they were going to do with it. If you have those concerns, but yeah, they showed up, and they. I feel like we've done the hard work.
Thank you. I want to really uplift the input that you put into this process. This is our beta round, and we were trying to do something and did something very different and experimental. And you're continuing, I think, our desire to push back at all of the forms that had existed before. Like you said earlier, even saying, well, wellness looks different to other people, and reflecting that back to us when we were like, well, is this wellness? Is that what you said you were going to do? And really appreciate that you and all of the other artists gave such input on making sure that we were also standing by what we were saying we were trying to do. So thank you so much for adding that to this process. And Hector, you've shared some really beautiful things around the shifts or the impacts that this has had. Do you want to share with us a little here?
Sure. I mean, it has various impact, but I would probably highlight a couple of things. The first is that the flexibility that this grant has allowed in terms of defining our goal and our action, our plan of action, giving us time to tweak it and kind of adapt it to the circumstances has been really important. And it basically allowed us to develop a project that integrates teaching, performance, and community action in the same project. And what I mean by that is we were able to connect this community jams and this residency at the school, in my opinion, work in tandem. On the one hand, doing the residency at the school has allowed us to bring our skills, our experience, our passion as artists, musicians, dancers, into a school community that really needs the support. Manzanita Seed is a school that really lacks a proper music and arts program, as is the case with a lot of schools in working class neighborhoods. So our presence in the school has enriched the program at the school, and has given us an opportunity to really connect with a new community that is thirsty for culture and for music. But at the same time, I think by us going to the schools, we are really providing kids and even teachers at the school a way to contextualize music. And what I mean by this is often, and I've worked in music education for a long time, often music education in schools is really disconnected from actual musical communities. We teach kids skills, a repertoire, almost in the abstract, without a direct connection with a community out there, outside of the school that is actually practicing this. So, kids learn this repertoire and they have a recital or an assembly, they perform it, and that's it. But in this case, we're teaching son jarocho, we're teaching bomba, we're teaching Afro-Caribbean drumming, and then we're opening up those, we're giving the opportunity to kids, to parents, to teachers to then come in the community jams and see how this music is then practiced and lived by people in their regular lives, how people really use this music to celebrate Dia de los Muertos, to protest, to go on marches, to celebrate holidays, to simply come together and commune. So music becomes part of building a community. And I think this program allowed us to kind of like connect the music education part with the community action through this music and dance jams. The other thing that it has done, it has motivated some of us to think and create a longer term vision for this project, to bring together artists in various Afro-Latin music traditions to support each other and design collective action and community engagement projects. We have taken the name ALMA, ALMA, and it works both in English and Spanish. ALMA, Afro-Latin Music Alliance, in Spanish would be Alianza de Música Afro-Latina. And our plan is to grow our group by inviting new artists into the group and to expand our scope of action by identifying communities, musical and cultural communities that we can work and implement a similar project of music education connected to community music events. So I think this grant, because it's so unique in the way it operates and in the way the process has worked, has really given us a chance to work out all these crazy ideas in our mind and kind of like start putting them into action at this stage in a more kind of like, concrete and modest way, but also has given us a chance to imagine a larger scope for this project.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this has been so exciting to watch what everybody's been doing. So thank you for sharing that. And then I just wanted to, I know there's a lot that happened during this event, but Tommy, I wanted to ask you if you had any sort of closing thoughts about this experience and the future of this program. I know you talked a little bit about the future of your work, but what are some maybe closing thoughts you might have, Tommy?
Well, first of all, I just want to acknowledge all the other cohort leaders in their words. I mean, I can pretty much say that I faced pretty much all the obstacles and things that they've gone through, as they mentioned, with my cohort and my thoughts around this. But I think the beauty of the grant was just that nobody has the answers coming out of a pandemic or still in it. I give you just one example of my work. I was co-promoting 2 shows that were about to happen at Rickshaw Stop that were postponed due to lack of ticket sales. So this world we live in right now is still unpredictable. So the grant itself has bought me time, has given me space to breathe. I'm dealing with a lot personally, with a father who's in the hospital right now. So I'm a little bit of a mess. Just want to share that to be public because I feel like I'm not myself right now. But that being said, it's these real life things, just to keep it real, keep it 100. Once the pandemic financial aid kind of went away, this was like prayers answered kind of thing, because I really was on this cusp of, do I live my 20 years being an independent, self-employed creative artist from my city of San Jose, or do I leave that 20-year work experience behind and go into this corporate side of things, which, no disrespect, no hate to Silicon Valley, but it's not where my heart is. And I feel much more better when I can be a senior creative, working with others to build community and be in the streets. So I just want to say thank you to Diamond Wave for seeing and recognizing my work off top, and allowing me to continue to push forward with my dreams and ambitions going forward. That being said, I hope that this can be a model for like other funding sources. Somebody who's actually been awarded many grants over the years. It's always tied to a certain amount of strings. I want to say the group, you guys, Kevin, Steven, Rian, and like you guys have been super supportive and helpful in shaping like how I move forward with this thing. I wasn't able to attack it like other grants in the past. So, you guys gave me a way to like figure it out, that time, that space. Still not out of the woods yet in terms of like, where my work is going. I'm a small business, right? So small businesses are still struggling. Small businesses are closing. So, I'm trying to continue to work at my best because I know what I'm capable of. And I just hope that I've passed enough along to my young cohort of artists and creatives to kind of see the light. And I will say this, not speaking for them, I know a couple of them have shared with me that they work 9 to 5s, but they're not working in their field of like what they love to do. And what they've shared with me is that they are now looking to pursue their creative outlet full time. And so I'm proud of that moment right now, even though we haven't necessarily announced any one specific event or thing that we're going to do yet that is coming. But I'll just leave with that to say that like it's given a lot of hope. Where I just feel in San Jose, there's just not a lot of hope for artists and creatives like myself. So I don't want it to be another 20 years before like we see any change. Stuff's got to happen now. So that being said, I don't know if that was a good closing statement.
That's great. No, so I like to end every conversation I have with artists with you right now have a captive audience. So if there was one thing real short, because we still have a 5-minute closing. So within like 2-3 words, and we'll put links in the chat. If there was one thing that you could ask everybody on this call to do when they get off of this call, what would it be? And I'll start with Chris.
I apologize. I had a whole long list. I think the thing that I would ask for is that you support slow, deep, long-term transformative work by Black women. We need the spaces and we need the time for things to unfold.
Thank you. And put your list in the chat because more asks is good. Trisha.
I have a few things. Show up to our shows. When women of color and non-binary artists are in shows, show up. People don't show up. Show up and let them know you're there. Let them know you see their work. Let them know it's valid and you like it. Buy work. We're out there. You can message people on Instagram. Go follow Queer Rain's Instagram. We're going to have a party at El Rio on January 16th, releasing this publication. Please come. Please support us.
Alma, did you want to add to that?
I'll just say my one word would be emergence.
We're going to go fast. We still need a minute. Zachary.
I'm going to pop some artists in the chat. Please check them out. They are worth your time.
Thank you. Hector.
I'm going to just pick one thing, and I think we need spaces for performance, whether they're professional performances or community performances of music. We're losing ground to gentrification. Many places that were open for performing are closing, and often I find myself performing at a venue and the performers being interrupted by the new residents of an urban space, whether it's in the Mission, whether it's in downtown Oakland, that are saying that it's too loud, it's too disturbing, that they need to focus their mind on whatever they're doing. I think that's wrong. I think our cities belong to all of us. And I think we need to critically think about that. We're losing spaces. We're losing lots of spaces. We need to invest in that, whether economically, but more importantly, politically. We need to pressure the cities to really allow for culture and music to thrive.
Thank you. And Tommy, I'm going to get to you. I'm going to start pulling all of our partners up in these closing moments. Tommy, you want to share one quick thing as we click the buttons to get everybody up here?
Follow Ungrammar on Instagram. We'll make our announcements there. And yes, please come down to San Jose. Don't be afraid. I don't know, take the train. Or I know the Bay doesn't come down to San Jose, but I'll sure support everybody else in the Bay. Hopefully there'll be more Bay Area interconnection. This grant, I think, has started that process. So
Thank you. And I can't pull everybody up because it's limiting the number of spotlights that I can put on here. So just to give a moment, I'm going to swap out artists for our partners just so that our partners can have a moment. And because we have some things to say.
Brandon, do you want some help with that? Or I can fill some verbal space while you're doing
it's all you now. Do it.
Okay, great. So I just want to thank all of the folks who really made this program happen. It was a ton of work, a ton of minds went into this. And so really want to talk and spotlight all of the folks that made that happen. Isalama Artri-Diop, who is the Program Officer of Arts and Culture at the San Francisco Foundation, Armando Castellano, who is an artist and trustee at Castellano Family Foundation, Tara Dalbo, Deputy Director at La Peña Cultural Center, Rhiannon Evans McFadden, who you heard from, Artist Curator and Director of Emerging Arts Professionals, Angie Helstrup Alvarez, Executive Director of MACLA, as well as Mariela, who I believe is here as well from MACLA, Maria Jensen, who is Creative and Executive Director in SOMARTS, as well as, I'm so sorry, Ari, I'm going so quickly, I'm going to try to slow down my talking, as well as Carolina, who is here with us from SOMARTS as well, and then Stefan and I from Diamond Wave, as well as Faiza, who is the new interim person working on arts and culture over at the Walter and Elise Haas Fund. But also just wanted to take a special moment to thank Francis Phillips, who is the former Program Director of Arts and the Creative Work Fund at the Walter and Elise Haas Fund. For those of you that don't know, Francis retired last month. And Francis, we just wanted to give a special moment to shout out to you for not only your deep and connected work on this program, but for everything that you've done for the last 30 years for Bay Area arts communities. Thank you so, so, so much for all of the work that you have done, Francis. We just want to shine a light back on you for all of the work that you've done for communities.
I'll just say thank you back. I love this arts community and it's always been a pleasure. So I really appreciate the acknowledgement, but those of you who are speaking about your work, you're the ones who are really doing the hard part. So thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. There were folks who I couldn't put in spotlight because you are don't have your screen on. There's Isalama. I wanted to make sure everybody had a moment. Thank you all so much. I'm going to pull as many people up as I can. Kevin, I don't know if you want to do closing.
Yeah, sure. I also want to thank our interpreters who are keeping up with our breakneck speed. I'm so sorry for talking fast, but again, we had a lot of content to get in here. So thank you both for your flexibility, Ari and oh no, I'm not finding you now. And Elizabeth, that's what I thought, and I don't want to say the wrong thing. So Ari and Elizabeth, thank you so much. And thank you for all of the partners, all of our funders, and all of the artists who are making this work happen. I'm available to stay on if folks have additional questions. We can stay on, but this is officially the end of the event. So if you've got other places to go, we really want to thank you for being here, for learning more about this program. Also want to give a huge shout out to Todd Berman, who is doing some visuals for us today, kind of showing that sketchbook. And we will share that document as well as the slides and other information about the program with you and back out with community shortly. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kevin, Stefan, and Rhiannon.
Thank you all so much for joining us. Please, if you have any last questions, pop them in the chat as well.